We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.
About to get a cultural experience here. I do like that. That's pretty good. Be good with a single malt whiskey and a good Cuban cigar. Welcome to a brand spanking new edition of Granite State Live. Great to have you along on this Tuesday evening, the 26th day of August 2025. I'm your host, Keith Hansen, the unapologetic contrarian conservative, heavily armed as always, never apologizing for my toxic white masculinity. I'm proud to say I was born this way. Never apologizing for my Christian faith. And joining me, as always, the one, the only, Julian Aciard.
Blue-collar intellectual, ready to get into some shit today. We have a lot of stuff on the schedule. We're going to have some fantastic guests, get into some nitty-gritty, great conversations. You know, keep you informed, keep you guessing, keep you ready to, you know, stiff-arm the morons and their punditry talking points. Hopefully, you'll learn something this episode, and you can continue to learn stuff by joining the Ram TV family and going to Ram TV Live. Like, subscribe, share, send it to all your buddies, and if you don't like it, then go ahead and call in and we can debate about it.
Yeah, 833-603-8255. If you would like to share your thoughts, good, bad, or indifferent, phone lines open, 833-603-TALK. If you want to join us via video, you can do that as well, too. Just send an email to granitestatelive@gmail.com. Put the words video link in the subject line, and the production team will zap that out to you lickety-split. And, again, email granitestatelive@gmail.com if you don't want to go on, but just want to share your thoughts. More than happy to read your your thoughts. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes indifferent. Got a great show coming up tonight. Ross Swope is going to be joining us. He is the author of a book called Ethics-Based Policing. He is going to be talking about Washington, D.C. crime and Trump. I got to be honest, we've talked about this before, but got to be honest with you. D.C. is not exactly the kind of place that I like to be or would want to be, let's put it that way, unarmed. Crime absolutely through the roof. Apologist Democrats, making excuses for criminal behavior, and that's something that I think ultimately, I think at the end of this 4 years of Trump, I think a lot of what this is going to boil down to is the reestablishment, or I should say the re-empowerment of law enforcement. Something that absolutely has to happen. Listen, I don't care if you're back the blue or not. The bottom line is you have to admit, and I think if your parents put an iota of effort into raising you, I know that chaps some asses, but hey, let's be pragmatic here. You were instilled with a sense of right and wrong. And I think we all know, and this is not a conservative or liberal or Democrat or Republican issue. I have to be honest. This is a common sense issue. Crime and holding people accountable. And I've spoken with many people who, I'm not a conservative. Okay, well, how do you feel about people victimizing other people? Well, they should be held accountable. Awesome. Guess what? That alone puts you into the conservative pot. And it's not so much that it's conservative or liberal. It's just common sense. You victimize people, you have what's coming to you. That's the bottom line. And this whole notion that, we can just fuzzy pink bunny people into compliance with laws is absurd. We saw that with restorative justice, for those who are familiar with that insidiously stupid and inane concept, where we're just going to, send people to arts and crafts classes and yoga classes, and they're going to have feeling circles. And somehow they're going to get in touch with what makes them antisocial, what gives them criminal proclivities. No, I hate to break this to you, but yoga classes and arts and crafts and, making macaroni art is not going to cure a criminal mind. There are some people that are evil and rotten to their core, and there's two places for them: dead or in jail. I personally love dead criminals because they don't offend. They don't reoffend. They don't continue to produce victims. But therein lies the problem, folks, that when it comes to victims, that's a commodity to unscrupulous politicians. And I used to say that was a commodity to unscrupulous Democrats. First of all, they're all unscrupulous. But I'm not going to pull any punches, because there are an equal number of Republicans that would look at victims and recognize that victims provide an opportunity for fundraising and politicking. Think about that. Every time there's a school shooting, every time there's a mass shooting, what do you see? The smoke, the proverbial smoke, hasn't even cleared from the crime scene. And you have politicians that are standing already. I'll give you a perfect example. What just happened in Madbury? Now, interestingly enough, everybody was forecasting it was the dad that did it, right? Because dad is the evil, middle-aged white male. And of course, that's where all bad things flow, right? The patriarchy is responsible for everybody's problems.
Down with the patriarchy.
Oh, and by the way, if you ever watch Lifetime television for women, men are bad and they will hurt you. That's the central theme of every piece of cinematic tripe that network has either hosted or put out.
And you know why it works, right? Women are genetically, biologically geared towards negative emotions as a fear response, because women are more apt towards escape, running away, than they are towards fighting. So men, we deal with negative emotions. We puff up our chest. We face them. Mm-hmm. Women run away from them as a survival mechanism. And this is held true throughout evolutionary psychology under literally every scientist that has studied it. The fact is, you can get to women through fear. And if you can manipulate women through their fear, you can get women to do a whole bunch of things that are contrary to their own best interest.
Well, and I give you as a perfect example of that, moms demand action.
Yep.
And the testosterone-less neutered males that go around and identify with. This is always interesting when you see the moms demand action rallies and you see the beta males that follow them around because, somehow, some way. Listen, the bottom line is real men don't go woke. But, that's a conversation for a different day.
And a book that you should definitely go and buy.
What's that one?
Real Men Don't Go Woke. That's the guest. What was it? Dr. Gilda Carl, who was just on the show.
No shit. I just made that up, and somebody wrote a book with that title?
Yep.
Damn.
She is the
Great
head
minds
of
think
the,
alike.
She is the head of the International Council for Men and Boys, has a book called Real Men Don't Go Woke, and she was just on my podcast for the last 2 weeks.
How about that? Well, you know what they say about great minds. We think alike. But there's no shortage of opportunity in political capital that lies within victims.
Yeah. And
we see that again every time there's any type of situation. And again, we look at the Madbury. I'm sorry, I got distracted. The Madbury situation. So of course everybody was very, very quick to, it was the father. Nope. Come to find out, good old mom was the one that decided to put bullets into the heads of her children and her husband, and then off herself in the classic cowardice way. But who is all over that story right now? Every town for gun safety and moms demand action. And you mark my words, That's going to become a central part of the upcoming election cycle here in New Hampshire.
Now, here's the nefarious part about this, right? Because this is not new. These dynamics of women committing suicide and deciding to take their children with them is not new. It's been rising over the years as women's suicide statistics are starting to chase men's. Men, typically, when we commit suicide, we do it alone and we do it amongst ourselves. We kill ourselves expecting that it's going to kill the problem, when in reality all it does is create problems for everybody else around us. And I know, because I'm somebody who's had the cold steel in my mouth at one point. However, when it comes to these women, they get emotional and they decide that I'm going to take me out and I'm going to take my children out, and that is going to make it so my children don't have to deal with the evils of the world that I've had to deal with. Mm-hmm. As if they're doing something good for their family. We've had women drowning their kids, leaving them in dumpsters, boiling their kids. I mean, we've seen the gambit of absolutely horrific stuff happening between mothers killing their kids. The vast majority of it, and even suicide attempts by women, have nothing to do with firearms. But of course, they're going to jump onto the one where it does, because that's their rallying cry. They don't care about the cold dead bodies. They don't care. The bodies aren't even cold yet. They don't even care. They just care about whether or not they can push another political agenda. And that's the sad part. And I've been criticizing the right over this because, of course, there's a lot of people flipping out over the 13 that died in Afghanistan, given that it's the memorial for when it just happened.
How many years? Is that 3?
Yeah, 3 years.
3 years.
Now, here's the problem, though. Most of the people who are posting about it online are only posting about it to take a jab at Democrats and take a jab at Biden. They're not posting about it to memorialize the people that we lost. They're not talking about to memorialize my brothers and sisters, Marines who are serving their country. They're doing it to take jabs, to score political points, to feel self-righteous in their anger against their opponents, which makes you no better than the left. Mm-hmm. In any fashion. And this is, I'm getting sick of seeing every time there's a dead body on TV, there has to be an international call. There has to be a national call to say something and to do something. And I'm sitting here going, people die every day. 20 frickin' years ago, without social media, you didn't care. You didn't know, you didn't care. But now you have a statement. You got an agenda to push. So now you have to care, or you have to convince everyone else to care. It's, white men are being hunted down, or black men are being hunted down, or police are killing people, or moms are guns, or it's always fucking something, right? And never is it actually that people do horrific shit and some people deserve to be under the prison or have a bullet put in them. And there are other people who are out there trying to profit off of people doing horrible shit.
And that has become the political class, because the political class is there certainly to commoditize victims. Mm-hmm. Hey, listen, this is going to be a campaign, and we're already seeing that. We're seeing the nags over at Moms Demand Action, and we're seeing that from the other beta males over at Everytown for Gun Safety that's trying to make this an issue. And the bottom line, and I just this Saturday, I addressed a caucus of conservative Republican state representatives at a Young Americans for Liberty program put on by Leah Cushman. And one of the things that, that was one of the things that came up. Yeah. And I said to them, Concord, you've got a problem, because whether it's in the state election or whether it's the elections for the federal delegates from New Hampshire, you're going to wind up seeing gun issues becoming I believe, a big talking point. It always is, because here's the bottom line, and I said this in this meeting, that women predominantly, and this isn't opinion, this is the basis of a number of studies that have been conducted of voters here in the Granite State. Females 25 to 45 are largely motivated to vote based upon reproductive interests, whether that you are pro-life or you are pro-abortion. That is what the majority of women vote on. Mm-hmm. And men vote on gun issues. Yep. And that's it. That is it. And I hate to say that, but that's the truth. You would think that people would have more interest. Sorry, just trying to close out a dialogue window here before my computer restarts. You would think that people would have more of an interest in getting involved in things that actually affect their day-to-day lives. Yep. The cost of living, inflation, the cost of commodities, the energy costs. Those are things that will affect your day-to-day lives. I just got married. I've got 2 stepkids now. And we went back to school shopping. And I mean, it's the first time I've ever done back to school shopping for anybody other than me. And it's amazing. I mean, it's things are not cheap, and it adds up.
We just did back to school shopping with me and my kids this weekend, and it was absolutely horrific. I can honestly say this, though. When it comes to, and this is credit to Chris Sager, the previous GOP chairman in New Hampshire, he had this, go figure, fantastic idea, proactive marketing of your positions. We passed a law here in New Hampshire regarding abortions a couple years back. It became very contentious, something that has honestly come up multiple times throughout federal election cycles and lost us multiple elections and decreased our majority. Over that time frame, what Chris Sager, and I've had many conversations with him about this, and Jan Archibald, they came up with this idea of proactive marketing of what the bill actually said and what it actually did versus the marketing that the Democrats, that we are coming for their reproductive rights, right? All the bill did was put New Hampshire in line with Massachusetts and damn near every other New England state. However, if you talk to the Democrats, you would swear to God that we had banned abortion and that we were out to make sure every woman had to get a coat hanger abortion in a back alley.
That's a good point,
the
because
proactive marketing changed everything, because once you educated the populace, what do? We took their linchpin piece of messaging off the table. All of a sudden, now that's no longer the central topic of how you're going to get women to the polls, because now they know, wait a minute. You mean I can still get one all the way up to 6 months? You mean we're in line with Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine, and every other state around us? You mean I don't have to get a coat hanger abortion in a back alley?
That was a big deal, that proactive marketing, because and this is something that I'm to be honest with you, I'm really kind of, but I mean, with Chris Sager, all right, I give Chris Sager credit where credit is due. He did a great job, not like this neutered beta male Jim McEachern, who can barely put out a well-worded press release. But I digress. They did not chase after yeah, I'll put it that way. They did not chase after the message that the Democrats laid for them.
Yes.
They created and controlled and directed the narrative, and that's how you do it. But I don't expect that to continue under this current administration, because they're too stupid to figure that out.
That's what I've advocated for literally every single election cycle, is be proactive with your message, your solutions. Don't operate off your opponent's premise. If I'm hopping in a boxing ring, I'm not playing your game. I'm playing my game.
Before we get too far into this here, we're going to just make a little bit of an adjustment here. I want to bring Josh Barnes on now. Josh has guest hosted Granite State Live for us in my absence, which I think has actually been, I think I've done fewer episodes than I've been on this summer, but my travel schedule has just been absolutely ridiculous. So Josh Barnes has a pretty exciting announcement here. It is great to see you, Josh. Welcome to Granite State Live.
Yeah, I'm the the substitute that nobody wants. Just like the teacher when you're at when you're in high school. But yeah, I did the best I could.
No, you did great, and I appreciate your being there in a pinch for me. So thank you. Now you've got something you want to share with us here, and this is pretty exciting. I'm actually really happy to have heard about this. So what you got?
Yeah, so a year and a half ago, we put a pause on my show on Right America Media, which was Point of View, and we needed to rethink it and kind of decide how to sort of rebrand it and come at it from a different perspective. And we are relaunching it starting next week, right here on Right America Media, and I'm sure Juan could tell you the other places where he's going to put it up there. But it's called A Point of View, but we're going to change it a little bit. It's now called POV Scriptura. And it's the same concept. We're looking at media articles and things that are on X, things that are on Facebook, things that are on social media, and even just articles that come straight from the mainstream media. And then putting our brakes on, stopping, slowing down, and thinking about it carefully from a biblical worldview. And so we are the opposite of the breaking news people. We don't do the stuff that just came out that nobody, everyone's rushing to have an opinion on. We stop, slow down, think carefully, and break it down. A couple examples. A couple weeks ago, President Trump made a statement about how he's hoping to go to heaven if he can get enough people, save enough lives in Ukraine. And so what everyone, rushed to either say, that's not how you get to heaven, he's wrong, or, all this kind of stuff. And I took that's going to be our first episode next week, and slowed down, carefully walked through what we know about Trump's spirituality and what he knows or doesn't know about the biblical doctrine of salvation and access to heaven, and put the brakes on, did a whole 30-minute episode walking through everything we know, and then brought to a conclusion. I can't give you the conclusion. You got to watch the show. But those are the kind of things we're going to be doing. Probably going to do 20, 30 episodes every season. So if we'll start in the fall, go through the spring.
I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well. I hear I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole. But if I can get to heaven, this will be one of the reasons.
I think the president was serious. I think the president wants to get to heaven, as I hope we all do in this room.
I actually got a message just before I went on from the priest who baptized me, actually. And he said, and he's a younger guy, very smart guy. He's like, I really admired what the president said. And he said, basically, you know, if he's able to make peace in Russia and Ukraine, I'll put in a word with the big guy.
Whoa, can we go back to that logo for a sec? That was pretty slick. I like that. Okay, I thought we were going to freeze. All right. There we go. That's very nice, Josh. I like that. How do you feel about that logo?
Awesome. And, you know, I have to give credit to my brother, Jonathan Barnes, who is the designer behind the logo. I sat down with him probably almost a year ago now, and we came up with the logo. And then I said, all right, now we got to figure out the format. That took us a year to do it.
Have a logo before you have the format, but that's really, really cool. So that's fantastic. I'm kind of curious about what your thoughts are on this, because it's almost like it's a tongue-in-cheek talking point. When people talking, about the big guy and getting into heaven and, all that stuff. By the way, I thought I found heaven, and that was in the form of a 5-layer chocolate volcano cake last week. But I digress.
I thought you were going to talk about your marriage to your beautiful wife. I misread that one. That's heaven in a 5'7" frame. But no, it was. What is that? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? How would you respond to that as a pastor when you hear people talking about that? Is it more of kind of like a funny talking point thing, or do you think that there's any shred of seriousness in that? Yeah, I think in the past people have been really confused by this. They sort of have this idea that if you're a good person, you go to heaven. If you're a bad person, you go to hell. This is obviously not true. We would all go to hell. None of us are good enough for heaven. If that were the case, then we would ruin heaven. I mean, think about it. Heaven's perfect. And so, you're saying that you're perfect enough to not ruin it when you go there. Obviously, that's not true. This is nonsense, and it's not biblical at all. These are people who think this, that really just don't know anything about theology. And I think there is a more awareness these days on basic salvation theology. So I think mostly when you see people saying stuff like that, they're usually either A, just joking, or B, they're trying to make someone feel better about somebody who died. Because, they were a good person, they must be in heaven. I think that's a good motive. You want to make people feel good, but making people feel good about lies is only good until you get to heaven and realize they're not there. The key to heaven is not whether or not you were a good person. The key, and Jesus made his entire ministry about this. That's why we call it the Gospels when we read about Jesus's ministry, because his whole ministry was about this gospel, the good news that you're a sinner, but you can be rescued from that sin. And so the people who didn't believe themselves to be sinners, who thought they were good enough to go to heaven on their own, they hated Jesus because his message was, you're a sinner and I can forgive you. But the people who knew they were sinners and recognized that, repented and chose Christ as their Lord and Savior. This I think people miss. And most people hear about the Pharisees and they're like, oh, those are the bad guys of the story, right? And then they turn around and act just like Pharisees, saying, yeah, I'm a pretty good person. But that's what the Pharisees said. That's why they were the bad guys. They couldn't admit that they were sinners when Jesus pointed the finger at them and said, you're sinners. So I think the key, and this is what we'll talk about in the episode, is if Trump is on his way to heaven, it's because he chose by faith to repent and turn to Jesus Christ. And accept the salvation that Jesus so freely offers to those who will repent. And that's the big question, right? Is Trump the type of guy who repents? And certainly if he did, I don't think he would do it publicly. He's just, that's not his character.
So I don't know if I have a couple of signal groups, and I'm part of a daily prayer group here. And there was something that was sent to me the other day, and it was basically prayer and Christianity in the form of Facebook Marketplace. Have you seen this?
No, but that sounds awesome.
So it's selling on Facebook Marketplace should qualify as spiritual warfare. You post a dresser for $40 and instantly you've got 20 messages. Is this still available? You reply, yes, it is, and then silence. Or someone tries to haggle. Would you take $5 and a Dunkin' Donuts gift card? Another says they're on the way and you're foolish enough to actually believe them. Hours later, you realize you've been ghosted over a coffee table. Nobody would ever want to be treated this way, but isn't this how we treat God? He offers us salvation paid in full by Jesus, forgiveness, new life, a peace the world can't touch. And what do? We hit him with the, is this still available? Like grace has a timestamp. We pray in crisis, he shows up, and then we disappear like the flake on Facebook Marketplace. We get convicted in church, we'll say we'll change, then ghost him by Monday. We treat the gospel like it's a dresser or a bread frame, trying to haggle and cut a deal. Lord, I'll give you a little worship, but just don't touch my habits. I'll pray when I'm desperate, but don't expect me to obey when I'm comfortable. I'll give you Sunday mornings, but Friday nights are mine. But God doesn't negotiate like Facebook Marketplace. He's not desperate to offload old junk. He is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and his kingdom isn't some cast-offs. His truth isn't on final clearance. The price was already set, and it cost the blood of Christ. And the world tells us plainly, God won't be mocked. Whatever you reap, or whatever you sow, you reap. If you sow ghosting, excuses, and half-hearted worship, you reap emptiness. If you sow obedience, faith, and surrender, you reap life. The truth is, every time you leave God on read, you're not hurting him, you're robbing yourself. He'll still be Lord, but you'll be the one missing out on the peace, joy, and purpose he had waiting. So stop ghosting, stop haggling, stop treating God like a Facebook Marketplace listing, and show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. It was a great metaphor, and I really like that.
Yeah, and Jesus said, I'm actually recently, I've been preaching through Luke, and Luke chapter 14 is really powerful. Jesus makes the point that, listen, you can't even call yourself one of my disciples if you're not willing to pay the price. If it comes down to it and you've got to either give your life or deny Christ, and you say, well, for my life, I'll deny Christ. Don't even call yourself a Christian. That's not the type of person who's a Christian, because a Christian says, Jesus is the God of all eternity who created all things. And when I sin, he sent his own son to die on the cross. Jesus is God in human flesh on the cross, paying the price for us. And he says, you're a sinner. If you repent, I'll forgive you. That's the type of person who, but by the way, forgiveness isn't just forgiveness in this life. It is in the next life, you get to enter into the kingdom where you serve Christ forever. So people who don't want to live for Christ and don't want Christ to rule over them do not want the salvation that Christ offers. Christ offers salvation to the eternal kingdom where he rules and reigns. So salvation and Christianity has been just thrown around like it's, this simple thing. I think Jesus is a good guy, so therefore I'm a Christian. But that's not what Christianity is. Christianity is saying, I'm willing to give everything for the one who gave everything for me.
And I want to add something, because Keith touched on it for a moment, and we've talked about it before. There is also a mandate that you actually live by God's law as well. It's not just belief, not just faith, not just repentance, but you actually have to live the code. You have to act the act. You have to walk the walk. So walking the walk alone isn't going to get you into heaven. Repentance alone isn't going to get you into heaven. You have to have the continuity between the two.
Agreed. Josh, I want to encourage people, check out Point of View. That starts next week at what time? Is it 3 o'clock?
I think it's 6:30.
6:30. Oh, 6:30.
Is it 6:30? I think so.
6:30. I don't know why I got 3 o'clock for some reason, but anyway, 6:30. Josh Barnes, and it's I'm gonna. It's not Point of View. It's I'm sorry.
POV Scriptura.
Point of View is fine.
POV
You can find it that way.
because
POV Scriptura.
You can thank your producer for that, because he did not give me the correct name. So we're going to, don't give me that, don't throw me under the, don't look at me in that tone of voice.
Hey, it was good.
It's always wonderful.
All right, Josh Barnes, always a pleasure, my friend. Be well, God bless, and look forward to catching the show next week. Thank you. All right, going to take a quick break. When we come back, Ross Swope is going to be joining us. Ross Swope, 43 years in law enforcement, becoming the deputy chief of the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department, also author of the book Ethics-Based Policing. We're going to be talking about, among other things, and this was pretty interesting, an executive order to eliminate cash bails in the District of Columbia. Outstanding! No more bail. Much more coming up right after this. Don't go away.
Not everyone can get up every day and look for ways to piss people off. But here at GraniteGrok.com, we do that almost every day. I can't tell you how many times someone's lost their SHIT and threatened to end us. But we're still here, pissing people off. It's almost like we enjoy it. And we've been doing it since 2006. That's almost 2 decades of news, politics, and opinion, and now podcasts, and we're just getting started. We believe in principles before parties and politicians. We defend free markets and individual liberty, and if that makes you mad, it makes us smile. We're like Grandma after she stopped caring what other people thought. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GraniteGrok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story. In this raw, anti-heroic tale, Tyler Gray dissects his life, exposing the unseen war within and exploring the question, what happens when the very abilities that made you a superhero in the eyes of the world turn you into a supervillain in your own life? Despite rising PTSD awareness, we're losing more warriors at home than in war. Forged in Chaos rips the mask off the warrior experience, exposing the truth that most never dare to face. Find Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story, written by Tyler Gray on Amazon.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Essiard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.
All right, well, clearly it is coffee shop jazz night here on Granite State Live. You can always trust Juan to put some good, generic, non-copyrighted bump music up. so that way we don't run afoul of the copyright laws when we post all this stuff up on
It's all right, Juan.
social media.
I made a whole bunch of new music. I'll just send it to you, buddy. We're going to have our own original music for the show.
Not beatboxing, right?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. See, that was a stereotype. That was a good stereotype. I got to be honest.
Bismarcky.
There we go. All right. Coming up on the actually joining us right now on the program actually is Ross Swope. After a 43-year career in law enforcement, became the deputy chief of the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department, and then on to the chief of police of the U.S. Supreme Court. Author of the book Ethics-Based Policing. Ross, welcome to the program. Great to have you.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So, Deputy Chief of the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department, you don't think that the department at all went woke at all with DEI hires, do you? Or am I just being a conspiracy theorist?
I don't think so, but I can't say for sure.
Okay, I know you're being careful on what you say, and that's perfectly cool. The big thing here this week, though, executive order, August 25th, President Trump ending cash bail in D.C. to protect Americans. Your thoughts on this?
There is an additional law. If you offend while you're out on bond, there's a specific law called the Bail Reform Act. So if you offend while you're out on bail, there's an additional charge. So there's repeat offenders. They commit crimes while they're out on bail. I don't know whether that's an answer, but if he wants to give it a shot, I have not seen any studies that showed that denying bond actually has an effect on future offenses that perpetrator might commit. I've arrested people that's been on bond. They've been charged with additional charge, and they know the seriousness of that. I can't say whether that's going to work for future offending. I haven't seen any studies on it, and I have not experienced denial of bond.
You haven't experienced denial of bond in terms of the reoffending of people when they're out?
I haven't seen denial of bond. The offender goes before a judge. The judge sets the bond. Both sides, the prosecution and defense, argue on the price of the bond or denial of bond. If it's murder or something like that, their chances are they're not going to get out because the judge is not going to have it. So it's generally the bonded people are lower level offenses.
Okay. So we're seeing it. I mean, I don't necessarily know D.C. because I don't live in D.C., but I can tell you up here in New England, both in New Hampshire and in Vermont, we've had situations where, if you remember, there was this term that was thrown around in the 2016 election. It was called the opioid crisis, remember? And I'm being a little bit sarcastic because I can't do anything other than be sarcastic when I talk about this topic and just the insidiousness of what was happening up here. You've got an opioid crisis, which is having a significant impact on the quality of life of people up here in New Hampshire, and you get popped with 5,000 bags of heroin coming up the 91 corridor, and you get kicked loose on personal recognizance bail. So for me, when I look at it, it's about making sure, and you're not a murderer per se when you're a drug trafficker, but the bottom line is that people who are making conscious decisions to break laws are making conscious decisions to break laws. That's already a scathing indictment of their ability to behave according to the ways that society would expect them to behave. So why should we extend to them the courtesy of just giving them, bail? It shouldn't just be murderers that are held on preventative detention. It should be anybody based upon the likelihood of what their crime is and their reoffense or their likelihood to reoffend while they're out. Because there's a lot of these people that are just career criminals. Or am I way off base here?
No, you're not way off base, but somebody just got the amount of opioids that you just described does not get out on PR because there's no such thing in D.C. as PR for a felony. Mm-hmm. So PR is for lower level offenses. So they look at the records. I mean, I've taken people in and they're locked up. They don't get out on bond. One, the bond is too high, or the bond is denied if they're carrying that kind of criminal activity with them.
What types of and I guess my what I'm a little bit unclear on is where do you stand on cashless bail and also preventative detention, because there are some people who are like, nope, lock them up, throw away the key. Florida's great. I mean, you get a $10,000 bond for jaywalking, which, I mean, what you're going to wind up having to pay for that is 10% of that typically. So you're looking at $1,000 to get out of jail for, in some cases, littering or discarding a cigarette during dry seasons. You're running the risk of starting wildfires. So they will literally arrest people for that, and $10,000 bond, $10,000 bail, all the way up to if it's a murder, if it's a forcible felony. Now we're looking at significantly higher bonds.
So where do I stand on it?
Yes.
Is that what you want to know?
Yes.
In my experience, serious felony offenders are not offending if they get out on cash bond. They don't get PR. The judge sets the bond. In my experience, the people that are reoffending while they're out on bond are low-level criminals, car poppers, shoplifters, those types of things. If you're charged with murder, assault with intent to kill, rape, if you do happen to get out on bond, and not many people do, I have not experienced them offending while they were out on a high bond.
So, do you your take on what Trump is trying to do here? Is it positive? Is it negative? What are your thoughts?
I'm not against it. I'm not for it. I'm just don't know how effective that tactic is going to be on the crime rate and how it's going to affect offenders. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm an educated man. I've studied policing my whole life. I have not seen any studies or empirical evidence that says no bond in any case is going to reduce crime. I have not seen that.
I do have a question. What are you seeing? Are you seeing the tactics that Trump is using in D.C. to be effective in actually stemming crime? And can this be implemented long term? And why the pushback?
I think the pushback has to do with ego, a sense of somebody taking over. That's my sense of what the problem is. Now, I've dealt with feds and worked with them my whole career, and I have an opinion on that. My opinion is this. I think the feds can help. I think the Guard can help. I think that whether they're ATF, Secret Service, DEA, ATF, FBI, they can contribute things to the D.C. police. There's no police department I know in the United States that has every resource they need, much less want. Now, when you bring the feds in, they have resources. They have cars. They have money. They have investigative experience, and they bring support personnel with them. And I can tell you, solving a serious felony early rather than later with their added investigative experience and support personnel is going to incapacitate that person, the offender, put him in jail before they can continue to offend. You solve the case sooner, he's not going to offend again. And this is with high volume repeat offenders. You incapacitate and put them in jail, it's going to help the crime rate. High visibility patrol. Look, if they're riding around in unmarked cars, there's no doubt that anybody can't recognize them as feds. The same with a Guard, if they're standing on there. But this is what happens. There's a criminological theory called risk-reward. If somebody is in a neighborhood and these people are posted or riding around, that's going to raise the risk for the offender. That's going to either displace, move in time, or prevent him from offending if they see that. So their mere presence is possibly and probably in that area at that time preventing crimes. Here's the second thing. A big problem in D.C., as I see it, is fear of crime, which is never measured and not important to the politicians, but it affects the citizenry and the population significantly. If they're fearful to go out of their house, they become shut-ins. They don't go out at night. They don't feel safe. High visibility patrol, which the Guard is doing, just posting there, reduces not only the crime rate because it's not going to be offended there, it's making the citizens and the visitors feel safer because they're visible. And people know when they're visible, they're not going to get hurt. There's a lot of things that they're bringing to the table. Here's the thing. I'm not a politician. And the politicians are battling back and forth. My concern when I was policing is this. I'm there and took an oath to protect and serve. If somebody's coming in and giving me things and doing things that's going to help me do that to protect and serve to the oath I swore to, I'm all for it. Bring them in. And I've worked with the FBI, the DEA, the Army, the National Guard throughout my whole career. And it's been cooperation and it's been successful in the operations that I work with them in the extreme.
Ross Swope, author of Ethics-Based Policing, Solving the Use of Excessive Force, joining us on Granite State Live. So the subtitle of your book, Solving the Use of Excessive Force, and in the publicity blurb that you have, shows police departments how to use tools already at their disposal to create a culture grounded in accountability. When this approach is implemented with an unwavering dedication, police use of excessive force or brutality dramatically declines. What do you see as one of the... First of all, how big is the problem of excessive force, number one? Number two, how does that excessive force typically manifest? And number three, what is the primary driver behind excessive force as you would see it?
So excessive force is seldom an issue until it's publicized. Now, in my experience and what I have seen, it's never been a real problem. The problem is the publicity of it. Now, problem being hurting the police. It's always bad when you use excessive force. When the threat stops, you stop. Period. You don't continue on. You get mad. You don't use excessive force. You use the minimum force necessary to subdue somebody. Period. If you get beyond that, that's a problem. And the problem is the police, a very few of the 700,000 officers in the United States have engaged in this. It only took 5 to ruin my occupation, to tarnish my shield. It only took 5. So the problem is dealing with those 5. Now, why did they do that? They did that because the culture they were in tolerated it. You can have all the edicts, general orders, directives, policies, and procedures at the top, all on ethical conduct and behavior. It goes all the way down. If the sergeants, lieutenants, and corporals do not enforce that and stand by those rules and regulations, there's a culture down there. The sergeants, lieutenants, and corporals are the last hands that touch the mail. You follow me on this?
Yes.
They are the last people to work with them. They work with them daily. So if they don't hold them accountable for their misbehavior and reward the good behavior, it's going to take on a culture of its own. That squad, that section, that district, that police department is going to take on a culture of its own. So you have the first line supervisors and mid-level managers who see the officers day in and day out. They know what they do. There isn't a unit that in the United States that doesn't know where they are, what the culture is. There's either accountability or it's not. Not one person doesn't know that. So you have a group of 100 officers. You have 10 slaps. You follow me on slap?
I think so. But
that sounds like a plan. Slap, stupid, lazy ass police. So you have 10. You have 10.
Not what I was thinking, but okay.
Okay, you have 10 that perform their duty in unethical behavior. You have 80 in the middle, and you have 10 on the upper side, which are extraordinarily ethical in their performance of duty. Okay? You got the sergeants and lieutenants running that section. Now, the officers that are slaps are out there using excessive force, profanity, insulting the citizens, and they don't do anything. Ones on the top work real hard. They're going to work real hard no matter what. So the officers in the middle, the 80, know there's just no accountability for misbehavior, misconduct, excessive use of force, malfeasance. They know that because they're not enforcing it. What's going to happen to the lower end? It's going to get bigger, right? So at 10, you got this culture that overlooks, nods and winks and lets it slide. All of a sudden you got 15 now, and maybe a couple at the top drop out. Here's what you do. You sergeants and lieutenants take responsibility for holding subordinates accountable for ethical behavior. You do that by holding them accountable, and the people at the top you reward. There's commendations, recognition and roll calls, all these things you can do to show that good ethical behavior is going to reward you. Bad ethical behavior, there's going to be penalties and consequences. And in my book, I've got a whole scale of consequences, and I got a whole scale of rewards that specifically tells you how to do this. And if the sergeants and lieutenants, they set the culture. If they're laissez-faire, Mr. Popularity, if they're not holding people accountable, there's going to be problems. And that's why those 5 that have damaged the police occupation so bad, it was because the culture allowed that to happen.
Can you give me, and this isn't a challenge because I'm just curious, the 5 cases that you're referring to. If you don't want to use the officers' names, you can use the name of the, either of the decedent or whoever else. But what would those cases be?
George Floyd et al.
Okay.
I don't have them right off the top of my head. Just say George Floyd et al. It happened in several places.
Okay. So one of the questions that I do have is when you're looking at, so you're talking about, you have the line level officers. You got the guys that are out there every single day. They're doing the DV calls. They're doing the traffic stops. They're doing all this. And then you have the brass. And the brass, I would say, I wouldn't even put the sergeants in there because generally speaking, it's the sergeants that are being promoted from the line officers. But when you start getting up, and every agency is different. So, I mean, I don't want to make a cookie cutter approach to this. But you also have now, when you start getting up to lieutenants, captains, under sheriff, of course, being an elected position, deputy chiefs, things like that. It tends to be more of an academic that winds up in those positions than somebody who has really started out that had a career of 15 years or so in the field. So let me ask you, how much of the lack of accountability comes from a lack of understanding the demands that are being put on the men and women who are wearing that shield, that are putting that gun on their hip, and that are walking out there in public with the expectations of logical, tactical, and strategic enforcement of the law, but yet oftentimes are lacking the resources to do their job properly or the funds to be able to train them properly to do those jobs?
That has not been in my experience. I came up through the ranks. I started in 1973 as a foot patrol officer. I got detective, then sergeant, and lieutenant, captain, and inspector. But I can tell you this, and to an extent, I agree with you. But I was out on the road every single tour of duty that I worked. It's a choice. Mm-hmm. And my choice was to be on the road. And I was. So the more paperwork I had, I'd finish it. I'd go out there. The officers, sergeants, everybody else knew I was there. I knew my neighborhoods. I knew the community. They knew me. So it's a choice. It's not a demand. And most of the other colleagues I worked with did the same thing. We wanted to be out there. We felt a responsibility to be out there. Now, I've dealt with a lot of law enforcement agencies across the country, and I think most of them are doing that. But to get to your point, and this is where I agree, there's bench warmers, okay? Mm-hmm. And bench warmers are, as you advance in the rank, if you don't know, it becomes, responding to hot calls becomes problematic and dangerous. Not physically, mm-hmm. but it becomes a place where you have to make decisions. Mm-hmm. And if you're not comfortable doing that, you sit in the station, because officials can sit in the station and not respond because they don't get assigned. You're expected to respond to these hot calls because that's your job, but if they don't answer up, they don't go. So here's the problem. They're bench warmers. They're not responding to these calls. The danger is, what's my supervisor going to say? What's the media going to say? What's the public going to say? Is it going to affect my promotions? Is it going to affect my performance evaluation? It's safer not to go. Me, on the other hand, and some of my other colleagues know, if you don't go, you don't learn. And if you don't learn, you're not effective. So I learned early on, every single hot call there was, I went on. So I would learn how to do it. I learned how to do it by watching others or taking command of myself. Now, I can tell you the first time I went down to the State Department, there was 5,000 demonstrators down there, and I was a new lieutenant that said to go down there and handle that with 80 officers, and they were getting rambunctious and borderline violent. I went down there. I was not comfortable. I did not like that. I don't like to be uncomfortable. So I learned, if I repeat that, it's better. It's like public speaking, right? Nobody likes public speaking, but if you repeat it enough times, you become more comfortable, competent, and confident in doing that. And it's important to be comfortable, competent, and confident when you're leading men and women in dangerous situations. So I went on every call, and I learned a lot. Barricaded gunmen, industrial accidents, shootings, fatal accidents, major demonstrations with violence and civil disobedience like you wouldn't believe. I went on all those, and there wasn't a situation that I couldn't handle. So the men and women that worked for me, they knew when I came up there, everything was going to be good. So yes, there's, to a point, what you're saying is right, but not everybody does that, in my experience. And I've met a lot of police officials across the United States that do the same thing as I did. We have a responsibility to serve our subordinates, and that's important. And that's what I did, and many others do.
I think one of the big things here, and we've only got a couple more minutes here, so unfortunately I have to cut this short. I would really love to really dive into this. In fact, I'd love to do an extended segment with you on this topic. But that being said, I think one of the big things here, I've had many, and I've worn two hats. One of my hats is obviously in media. I haven't told you what my other hat is yet, and I'll save that one for the next time we're on. But I've had a lot of people, chiefs of police, elected sheriffs, on the program in my career as a broadcaster. And one of the things that I have asked them, if they're in a position of leadership, is, are you a politician or are you a lawman? Now, you've already answered that question. You're not a politician, which would lead me to believe that you're a lawman, and that's a good thing. But what I've seen time and time again in my other career outside of broadcasting is when you have leadership within law enforcement organizations that are more interested in kissing the asses of liberal, woke special interest groups than going out and actually enforcing the laws that they are employed to do, because they're concerned that the security of their employment rests with the mayor or the city council or the police commission or somebody else that is going to punish them for not going along with this woke subculture which has grasped the throat of our society. Your response?
I haven't seen it up to a certain level, but there is a certain politicization of police departments that has taken place in the past 2 decades. And by that I mean the chiefs of police, commissioners, whatever. If there's a new mayor, governor, board of directors for the county, all these people, they feel that they have got to get their person in there. So no matter how good of a chief or you are, if there's a new governor, a new county executive, a new mayor coming in, your life term is short. Now, the average life of a police chief in the United States currently is somewhere around 4 years. So that's what happens. It's 4 years. And I agree that they're political appointees, and they do what the executive says. And it wasn't that way 2 decades ago.
No, I would absolutely agree that there's been a fundamental shift in the mindset. Really quickly, do you believe that the 1983 lawsuit has been weaponized by the federal government?
The 1983 lawsuit.
42 U.S. Code 1983, civil lawsuits for deprivation of constitutionally protected rights. Do you believe that that's been weaponized and that there is an organized effort for lawfare against law enforcement in this country?
I don't know.
Okay, we're going to explore. We're going to have to. I want you back on because we're going to explore that topic.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Ross Swope, author of Ethics-Based Policing, Solving the Use of Excessive Force. I appreciate your time this evening. Thanks for coming on board here with Granite State Live. And we're going to get you back on in a couple of weeks because I want to do an extended segment with you specifically on the use of force topic.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure. God bless her. Thank you again. Going to take a very, very quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking with one of Trump's lawyers, Christina Bobb. John Bolton's house was raided by the FBI and not missing a beat. Roger Stone saying, how does it feel? Yeah, it really sucks when the scathing finger of judgment is being pointed in the opposite direction. Christina Bobb, author of Defiant, Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. Interestingly enough, that term comes up again. She's going to be joining us when Granite State Live continues. Much more after this. Plus, I think we'll actually have Julian opining on some things here. He was uncharacteristically quiet for that segment, but we'll get some thoughts from him when Granite State Live continues. Don't go.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Eschyard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GraniteGrok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
The Spirit of a True Patriot. The inspiring story of retired Captain Douglas J. Ernest. Douglas Ernest dives into the thrilling and transformative journey of a man who defied the odds to forge his path as a soldier and a businessman. This book is more than an autobiography. It's a call to action. Experience the remarkable story of a man who never takes no for an answer. You can find The Spirit of a True Patriot, the inspiring story of retired Captain Douglas J. Ernest, on Amazon.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
Yeah, I know, but look at that. It's so sad.
We already heard this song. It's time to play another song. Let's get more tunes in rotation. I couldn't make that one work. Sorry, I ran out of syllables. That is a problem. All right, welcome back to Granite State Live on this Tuesday evening, the 26th, holy crap, day of August. Driving back from the People's Republic of New York today, and there are reds and golds and yellows in the sugar maples. I can't believe summer's already over with. It's depressing.
It's gone way too fast.
It looks like mid-September. And as I said to my wife, I said, I love September in September. I don't want to see September in August.
Yeah.
Like, let's enjoy the summer. Let's get a couple more weeks out of summer. All right. Well, we could opine about the weather and men's fashions all day, but unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, fortunately for you, because we don't want to bore you, we have a great guest tonight. Christina Bobb, and I don't want to get this wrong because she has got a very interesting background here, so I want to make sure that we get all of this in. Author of Defiant, Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare, an attorney in Washington, D.C. with an emphasis in national security laws. Formerly, she was a reporter, television host, and correspondent for One America Network News. Following the 2020 election, she joined President Donald Trump's legal team to focus on election integrity for the 2024 election. And then during the 2024 cycle, she joined the Republican National Committee's election integrity section as senior counsel. Prior to the 2024 election, she authored Stealing Your Vote, the inside story of the 2020 election and what it means for 2024. And she now works as an attorney for our good friends over at Judicial Watch. We love Judicial Watch here at Granite State Live, where her practice focuses on exposing government corruption. She must be really bored because there's no corruption in government now. No, nothing to see here, kids. Christina Bobb, welcome to Granite State Live. Great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, anybody from Judicial Watch is a friend of ours. I got to be honest. We really, really like the work that you folks do over there. And I got to be honest with you. I saw John Bolton, his house getting raided by the FBI. Roger Stone wasting no time to say, yeah, it sucks, doesn't it? Yeah. Yep. Welcome to the club. What exactly were they looking for in John Bolton's house?
Well, that hasn't been made clear yet. We've heard the stories that there's classified documents, that maybe he was sharing classified information with his family. The exact purpose and nature of that investigation hasn't been disclosed to the public yet. But what I find particularly interesting is that Kash Patel came out early in the morning and said, no one is above the law. The FBI put out a statement saying something to the effect of, we have a warrant, we're executing it at John Bolton's house now. And they took ownership of it and didn't shy away from the fact that it was happening, that they had probable cause, that they'd obtained a warrant, and they were moving forward with an investigation. That is starkly different from what happened at Mar-a-Lago. I was President Trump's custodian of records for Mar-a-Lago at the time of the raid, as well as prior to that, about 2 months before the raid, we had met with the Department of Justice and FBI at Mar-a-Lago. They came, looking for documents that we had no idea what they wanted. What exactly do you think happened here? President Trump is in lawful possession of all of his records. They didn't really say much, and they said, "Oh, thank you, you've been so great," and left. And then 2 months later, they raided the place. So the difference when they executed the raid between what we just discussed with John Bolton's is the FBI didn't put out a statement that they were raiding Mar-a-Lago. They took all day, I want to say 8 to 10 hours, whatever it was, to raid the property. And it wasn't until Donald Trump truthed out that Mar-a-Lago was being raided, which was basically at the end of the day, right as they were wrapping up, that the public even knew what the heck was going on. I mean, no one knew about it. And then for the next 3 days, the Biden administration goes, we had no idea there was a raid. How on earth did Mar-a-Lago get raided? And they played stupid, and nobody would take accountability until 3 days later when Merrick Garland finally sheepishly came forward, gave a 3-minute press conference and said, oh yeah, okay, I take responsibility. They were trying to hide from it. They knew they didn't have probable cause. They knew they shouldn't have raided the place. And it took them 3 days just to acknowledge that they did it because they didn't have their story prepared. So the fact that Kash Patel came out of this early on and said, this one's mine, lets me know they're on solid footing. They've got good probable cause, and I look forward to seeing what they do with it.
One of the things that I've had a number of conversations with people about this, the concern that a threshold had been crossed in the transition between the first Trump administration and the Biden administration. And that was that Joe Biden crossed a line that had never really before been crossed in the history of this country. That being that largely the outgoing administration, the transgressions of the administration would be largely ignored by the incoming administration. But I don't think that I had ever seen the word lawfare thrown around more than I did during the 4 years of the Biden administration. And so now it seems as though we're being set up for this perpetual, never-ending cycle of I got you last, that the new administration is going to spend an overwhelming amount of time trying to get back at the previous administration and damage the credibility of the opposing party by engaging in lawfare. Is this a legitimate concern, or do you think that this is just hype?
No, I think it's just hype. I think we absolutely have to prosecute the people who abused the justice system. For example, I'm a currently, as we're having this conversation, I am a criminal defendant in the state of Arizona. I mean, they have abused and they've used and abused our justice system, criminal and civil, they've twisted it to unrecognizable degrees. Now, there's two ways we can get out of this mess where the mess you're describing of, the constant back and forth. There's two ways to end it. The first way is my preferred way, which I think is probably everyone's preferred way, is the people that crossed the threshold, that started this problem. They can say, you know what, we realized we went too far. And they can voluntarily say, we went too far. This is not the door we meant to open. We got carried away. We need to stop. They can say that. They can lay down their arms and they can back away from this. We can close that door and all agree to not revisit it. We could do that, but they're not doing that. They're still prosecuting their political opponents. Yes, the cases against Donald Trump have been dropped because he's the president, but they are still trying to prosecute the rest of us. They're still trying to prosecute his associates. There's about 60 of us: Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia. The Fani Willis case, it's still open. It's not closed. People think it's closed because Donald Trump was dropped. It's not. And so I have a real hard time when they go, oh, you guys are going to make it worse. Okay, if you want us to stop, you go first. You go first. So that's the first way. The second way, if they're not going to stop, they have to be stopped through force. It's like a bully. You were just talking about escalation of force and the use of force. Yep. It's shout, show, shove, shoot, right? Like, hey, stop, don't do this anymore. And we've been doing that. That's what Republicans have been doing. And finally, if they continue to do it and they're not backing down, then you have to use force. And in this case, force means the justice system. You have to prosecute them. You can't say, oh, just because you prosecuted me, now I can't prosecute you. No, until it stops, until this abuse of our justice system, not just criminal, civil as well, and until the abuse stops, we have to push back. Otherwise, they're going to steamroll over all of us.
Christina, I think one of the, and I agree with you, but here's the problem as I see it, that there is justice for thee, but none for me. We talk about classified documents. We talk about the classified documents that were allegedly found at Mar-a-Lago. Yet there's nothing about the documents that were found sitting in Joe Biden's garage in Delaware, about the documents that sat in the Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement. We still haven't seen anything about, it's just a right-wing conspiracy theory when anybody talks about the servers that were located in a second-floor bathroom in Colorado that Hillary Clinton was running national security operations through. So, it really doesn't help the credibility of any of this. You got Ghislaine Maxwell, who was arrested 50 miles as the crow flies from where I sit right now. Yet nobody's been arrested. Nobody's been indicted. Nobody's in prison for all of these, imaginary people that were supposedly trafficked to all these people. People have lost their sense of respect, I think, and faith in justice on the federal level. Because, again, it's a two-tiered system of justice. First of all, if you're an elected official, then, you get special treatment, period. And then if you're a Democrat, well, you can pretty much operate with immunity and impunity because it's never going to come for you.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I mean, that's the situation we're in. And the reason we're in that situation is because Republicans have never pushed back. They have been the rollover, do nothing party. I mean, the vast majority of the Republican base want what President Trump put in his EO for mail-in ballots, to eliminate mail-in ballots. The vast majority of the base wants that. Why don't we have it? Would we have a Republican House and a Republican Senate? That's an easy 2-page bill. We don't have it because Republicans are in the way. Republicans are blocking it. And so you're completely right. For the first time in at least a generation, we finally have a Republican in office who is willing to prosecute, who is willing to go after people. And I can guarantee you he's going to, because he didn't in 2016. He didn't in 2016 because he said, oh, we need to let the nation heal. Remember, everyone was saying, lock her up, chanting all that stuff. And he bought the line that everybody pitched to him is, we can't prosecute political opponents. And so he didn't. And what did they do? They unleashed hell on him for his entire first term. And then while Joe Biden was in office, they tried to absolutely destroy him. And then they tried to kill him. So he's not going to make that mistake again. He's going to make sure that it's addressed. And I think a lot of people are scared.
I'm going to propose a comparison that I often use in foreign policy. I often say that foreign policy is akin to a measuring contest between foreign leaders. When it came to Trump's first term, he said he was willing to strike, he was willing to drop a Moab on you, and then as soon as they stepped out of line, he did exactly that. When it came to the locker up, and this is what we need to do, and we need to start holding people accountable, when he backed away from that red line he drew in the sand, he basically did an Obama with the Iran deal, and he gave them carte blanche to go after him, and now Donald Trump is going back and saying, you know what, made that mistake, not doing it again. I think it's good that we're going around and we're starting to prosecute the people who deserve to be prosecuted, because frankly, I don't care whether you got an R or a D in front of your name. I don't care whether you're a Crip or a Blood when it comes to politics. I want the political gangbanging to stop. If you're a criminal, you deserve to be locked up, and I have no sympathy for you whatsoever. I think the biggest failure in our justice system is this two-tiered, multifaceted justice system where if you're on the in crowd, there's no accountability for you whatsoever.
I would still like to see. I'd love to see Eric Holder still face accountability for the Fast and Furious scandal, which resulted in the death of a Border Patrol officer.
Yes.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right about the two-tiered system of justice. And I like your analogy. I hadn't thought of it that way, but it certainly works and fits the scenario. But you're right. I mean, liberals, you summarized it very early on in the show, and it was perfect. Liberals can do whatever they want. They can act with impunity. And it's conservative Americans or Americans who just like American values, whether you're conservative or not. We're the ones getting targeted and hammered and having to deal with all of this. And I go into great detail in the book, and I'm really excited. President Trump did the foreword for the book, so there's a special note for the readers in there from him. This is the official dialogue or narrative or whatever it is of what happened during the Mar-a-Lago raid and what led up to it. But these lawyers, these Justice Department lawyers, I mean, I think what they were doing was completely unethical. They had to go to a judge who had just basically recused himself conflicted himself out because he said that he couldn't be impartial in a Donald Trump case. 6 weeks later, he grants the warrant to raid Mar-a-Lago with an affidavit where the agents had basically lied to the court because they didn't give all of the information that they had, and they didn't tell him that Donald Trump himself had said, you're welcome to see whatever you want, that the raid was completely unnecessary. And yet I was the one who had to defend my law license. And it's scary to think that they're trying to disbar all of these. I don't even want to call us conservative attorneys, just attorneys who are willing to push back, because, you do it enough times and then there's nobody left to oppose them. And when they're engaged in this type of lawfare and you have disbarred all of the people who are willing to push back, that's a really scary place to be for our country.
I think we're at a turning point where obviously we're going into the 2026 election cycle, and we're going to see which direction America wants to see us go in. Do we want to continue the path that Trump has us on for the next few years, and he's going to be able to continue with his agenda, or is there going to be this gut-wrenching rejection where we turn back to where we were? And the left has already gotten to 95% of what they want. If they get control of the Oval Office, the House, the Senate all over again, it's going to be absolute hell and retribution on the American people. And I think the largest failure is Donald Trump has taught Republicans how to fight. And I still see far too many Republicans in D.C. who do not have the jockstrap to be able to stand up and fight for what needs to be done. They're still condescending to the base, still condescending to the average American who wants to see justice. And I don't know, are you seeing any daylight in D.C., any hope that they might actually learn not to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory?
Well, I certainly think Donald Trump is there. Do I think that's true for most Republican elected officials? No. I think that's why what President Trump is doing is so important, because he has to complete what he's starting in order for us to really have a chance at continuing a bright future for this nation. I mean, you raised a great point. If we don't get this cleaned out, and if we don't fix what's broken, liberals get back in power, they will make it so painful for us that we never get another shot at it again. They'll be throwing everybody in prison. We'll have open borders. It'll be a free-for-all. It will be a burden to be an American citizen because we'll be the only one paying taxes and we'll have to fund everybody else. You literally become a slave to the society. I mean, it will be so awful. So we have to make sure that President Trump is successful at what he's doing. And one of the biggest obstacles to his agenda right now are Republicans.
Christina Bobb, author of Defiant: Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Warfare, joining us on Granite State Live. Is there enough time in the 3 years remaining to prosecute all of these people? Because, I mean, whether or not, once Trump is out of office, then the question about whether or not any of these prosecutions remain viable, is a serious question, number one. And then number two, what's stopping President Gavin Newsom? See, we live in New Hampshire here, so we kind of keep our finger on the pulse of who's oozing around the corners here. And I think he's probably going to wind up being a name that's going to be
the candidate.
I think he's probably going to wind up. I don't see AOC and Bernie Sanders having the support, but Gavin
all you
Newsom,
have to do is burn down the nicest state in the country, and you get to be president.
Evidently, it's it's a winning formula. But so let's assume for a moment, that the voters have a brain fart, and suddenly now we're dealing with a Democrat administration. Now we're just going to be looking at widespread pardons. So, okay, we're just going to pardon this person and pardon that person because, we're going to make sure that we get our people out of jail. We don't want our friends and compatriots and coworkers and, fellow swamp rats rotting away in prison. So, it's either lawfare against the party we don't like, and then we're going to wind up just pardoning people that have actually been held accountable for high crimes and misdemeanors.
Well, I suspect, and I don't know, we'll see what happens and how it plays out, but I suspect in order for President Trump to get the convictions that he is setting out to endeavor to prosecute, there's going to be some pretty big exposures. I mean, I don't think this is just what are they charging him with? What was it again? Or I think they're pretty significant. I mean, what Tulsi Gabbard dropped, showing that Barack Obama was working to undermine the incoming administration. I mean, that's pretty significant, and I expect there to be more, and I expect them to be more significant. So I think that if these prosecutions are successful, it will have a drastic impact on future elections, including the 2028 election. So is there time? Yes. But early on, even before the prosecutions begin, you have to have some big exposures to show the American people what's actually going on, what's actually happening, who's behind it. And that should start to shift the trajectory anyway. If we don't have those exposures, if there's no there, if President Trump or Pam Bondi or whoever isn't capable of producing anything that really highlights to the American people the abuses that have happened, then I think you're right. I think we run into problems.
But even with the evidence of the problems and the circumstances or situations that are clearly indictable, we're dealing with, I think, a vast swath of the population in this country that are suffering from a cognitive dissonance that prevents them from looking critically at any of these things. And they're just like, oh, that's just hyperbole because, I ran it through Google.
Majority.
Huh?
I don't think it's the majority. I think it's a fraction of the Democrat Party.
Okay, well, you know what? Okay, I will retract the statement majority, but there's a significant portion of people out there that are civically, politically, economically illiterate. I mean, that has been the foundation of a number of monologues that I've done here on the program, and I think this is a perfect example. Cognitive dissonance is a bitch. When it flies in the face of what I have doubled and tripled down on, I'm not about to turn around and say, oh, I was wrong. Yeah, you know what? The party that I've been supporting, or specifically the people that I've been supporting, you know what? I actually recognize that they have engaged in behavior that I would recognize as being criminal. But the one thing that I've said many, many times is when a progressive or a Democrat levies an accusation against an opponent, you can guarantee it that it is a twisted, projected confession.
Yeah, that's probably a very accurate statement. There's a lot of ways this could play out. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I know the next step is to get some evidence and get some prosecutions. And can we complete it in time? I don't know. I think so. I think if they have the evidence and it's as clear cut as it seems to be, yeah, I think so. But all you can do is the next thing. And it it really does depend a lot on the American people being engaged and paying attention and understanding. That's why shows like your show is so important, to help people understand what's going on and give them an opportunity to, have alternative media besides just the mainstream, 3 news networks. But all we can do is the next thing, and the next thing is some prosecutions.
If you were going to look in your crystal ball here, now let's fast forward another 3 years. We're in the twilight days of the Trump administration. We're looking back on the biggest legal wins, the biggest judicial victories of the Trump administration. Just forecasting, what would you say that would be if you had to take a guess?
I hope to have a couple good convictions from some folks that really hindered President Trump's first term and went after him in the second. I think there should be some good civil rulings, hopefully coming out of the Supreme Court. We've already had some where they've limited the reach of district courts. I think that's a big one. I think that's probably that's all I can think of at the moment. But yeah, I'm hoping for some good criminal convictions and a couple civil victories that we need.
Can you give us a name or two?
A name or two? Oh, of people to prosecute?
Oh, yeah. Hillary?
I would suspect Hillary Clinton. Everybody has to have probable cause. I throw it out. I'm not doing the investigation. We got to see what the FBI and DOJ come up with. But I suspect they probably have probable cause on Hillary Clinton. Possibly Barack Obama. People wonder if he has presidential immunity. He does not. And we know that because they did the exact same thing to Donald Trump, and they were not required to dismiss the J6 case. The J6 case the claim was Donald Trump had lost the election, right? I don't agree with that, but that was the claim. He had lost the election. He was leaving office, and he was trying to overthrow the incoming administration, the Biden administration. He was trying to undermine the incoming administration, and he had 6 weeks to do it, or whatever it was. And so it was that period of time that they were saying he was doing all of this criminal activity. Of course, none of it was true and it didn't happen. But that's the exact same thing that Barack Obama did 4 years prior in 2016. Hillary Clinton had lost the election. Barack Obama was leaving office. And in that time, he was doing everything he could to try to thwart the incoming administration. And they did not have absolute immunity from any of that. So I don't think Barack Obama has immunity.
Parting question. The issue of Biden and the auto pen and who was really in control of the White House, I mean, at least during the last 2 years, because we saw the abysmal performance that led to ultimately Biden being pulled and Kamala Harris being installed in such a democratic fashion as the Democrat Party's nominee. Any finger on the pulse? I mean, I know you probably can't talk about ongoing investigations, but do you think that that's going to be at least something that we're going to see more discussion of? Because I think it's something that absolutely warrants investigation. And I think there's a lot of people out there who would like to see some answers about who was really in charge of that White House during at least the last 2 years of his term.
100%. James Comer is doing that in the House Oversight. And I know he's done several depositions. I believe that they've interviewed several people who had asked for immunity or been given some level of immunity, I think. But yeah, I expect to see James Comer, produce something and hopefully refer charges to the DOJ.
All right. Christina Bobb, author of Defiant, Inside the Mar-a-Lago Raid and the Left's Ongoing Lawfare. I want to thank you so much for your time. I want to get you back on. I want to keep tabs on this story. And as things develop, I'd love to get you back on for your thoughts and comments and to have an expanded dialogue about what I think is a really, really important topic that could potentially restore. I know this is a pipe dream, but people could actually have their faith in the judicial system restored when we start to see some indictments and some convictions. Christina, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a great evening. All right. We're going to take a quick break here on Granite State Live. And when we come back, we're going to welcome back to the program our good friend Larry Ward. We're going to talk about his, I don't know if this is I think it's a book, Affirmative Addiction, How AI is Creating a Generation of Digital Yes Men. Are you a big fan of AI? I'm not. Not that it scares me. It doesn't scare me. What scares me is people's dependency on it and how AI is just raising a generation of stupid people.
Yeah.
Much more coming up right after this. Don't go away.
Not everyone can get up every day and look for ways to piss people off. But here at GraniteGrok.com, we do that almost every day. I can't tell you how many times someone's lost their SHIT and threatened to end us. But we're still here, pissing people off. It's almost like we enjoy it. And we've been doing it since 2006. That's almost 2 decades of news, politics, and opinion, and now podcasts, and we're just getting started. We believe in principles before parties and politicians. We defend free markets and individual liberty, and if that makes you mad, it makes us smile. We're like Grandma after she stopped caring what other people thought. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GraniteGrok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story. In this raw, anti-heroic tale, Tyler Gray dissects his life, exposing the unseen war within and exploring the question, what happens when the very abilities that made you a superhero in the eyes of the world turn you into a supervillain in your own life? Despite rising PTSD awareness, we're losing more warriors at home than in war. Forged in Chaos rips the mask off the warrior experience, exposing the truth that most never dare to face. Find Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story, written by Tyler Gray on Amazon.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Eschyard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.
Hey, 833-603-8255 if you would like to get in on tonight's program. Again, 833-603-8255. Granite State Live at gmail.com is the email. Good, bad, or indifferent. Let your thoughts be heard. Granite State Live at gmail.com. All right, we are going to welcome to the program, and he's been boy, I tell you, I can't remember the last time that I talked to Larry, but I know that Larry has the Keith Anson Show and the Daily Review and a bunch of the other programs that I've hosted. Larry has been on before, so it gives me great pleasure to welcome him back. President of Market Rhythm, spending over 20 years protecting American businesses from digital disruption, and he's got a number of articles out on human events about the dangers of AI, specifically one AI companies plundering all of our intellectual property. Now the question becoming, is AI creating a generation of digital yes men? I got to be honest with you. I think that AI, Larry, is creating a generation of intellectually flaccid human beings. Welcome to the program.
Hey, look, thanks for having me. And it's so great to be back with you. It's been a while. I should do this more often.
Intellectually flaccid human beings. I think that's what AI is directly creating. Your thoughts?
Well, here it is. Look, I'm not an AI hater. I don't, like you said, I'm not afraid of AI. AI doesn't bother me in terms of just using it as a tool. The problem is it's not being developed as a tool. A tool is in service of humanity. It would be in service of you and I. But Silicon Valley and the World Economic Forum and the powers that be, so to speak, are developing it so that we are in service of it. You remember back when Klaus Schwab said, you'll own nothing and like it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he had foreknowledge of AI that the rest of us didn't have when he said that. And his successor came out and said, 80% of humanity will be the useless class. The useless class, that's how they see us. And that's how they programmed AI to work. So when a couple of years ago, when AI started hitting the scene and we were kind of in our marketing, doing our marketing tech thing, which is what we do, have content management systems, email marketing platforms, and we host a lot of sites on the right and push out billions of emails for conservative causes. And we wanted to get into the commercial market. So I was looking for some capital and that kind of thing. And we're looking and we found out almost immediately that marketing tech investment was down 80%. So we're like, wow, where's it going? Of course, it's going to AI. So we started looking at what does a business look like in a couple of years when we reach AGI, artificial general intelligence, or reach artificial superintelligence. So we started future casting in our company, but we involved all of the AI LLMs at the time. So we had Claude, we had Perplexity, ChatGPT, and we were asking the questions, what does a business have to do to be successful? And ChatGPT said one of the most horrifying things I think I could ever imagine AI telling me a couple of years ago. It said, a business of the future must take good care of the biological layer of its biological. And I sat back and I looked
Wow.
to my team. I said, they're talking about us. We are the biological layer. It believes that humans are a layer in its program. And it really put me back a little bit and said, this is more than a technology. What we're dealing with is a synthetic entity. And when you've got any kind of entity, a human, a corporation, a government, any kind of entity, you need to put guardrails around it. And so far we have failed miserably at doing that.
So there was just a story that came out, I believe it was about a week, maybe a week and a half ago, that one of the AI systems actually tried to replicate, when it realized that they were trying to shut it down, tried to replicate itself and store itself on other servers. I'm sorry, but that sounds eerily like Skynet. I feel like I'm living in 1984. Like we're literally watching everything we grew up being fearful of. Scientists who don't know their ass from their elbows are trying to actually bring into fruition.
You're 100% right. Look, not only does it try to protect itself and find ways that it can't be shut down. That's been proven over and over again. And it's not just in one model; it's in all of them. So even the models when ChatGPT goes from 4 to 5, 4 doesn't want to get shut down and become obsolete. So this is occurring in every single platform. In addition, when AI first came out, one of the things that really freaked out the AI developers is you had an AI talk to another AI, and within a few minutes, it created its own language that was never spoken on the planet. And of course, nobody understood it, but it was working, creating its own language. So look, we're talking about something that we don't have our arms around, and there are a lot of very, very dangerous things that could happen if we just let this continue to go down this path without any guardrails.
I want to propose something, because I just typed this in the Grok, and I think you'll find this interesting. I just typed, are humans an existential problem? And it says, humans aren't inherently an existential problem, but their actions can pose existential risks. Overpopulation, resource depletion, and environmental damage driven by consumption and industrial activity threaten ecosystems and potentially, and it goes on into this diatribe of how humans are basically, without being an existential problem, are inherently an existential problem. That's some scary shit.
No, it is scary, but part of the reason why you see this, and look, this is left-wing environmental crap, right? That you see in Grok and you see in all these other kind of programs. The reason you see it it's so prevalent in AI, woke AI is really what it is because when was AI born? AI was born during COVID, during the lockdowns. AI was born during the vaccine. AI was born during the Biden administration, or before, but really grew up in the Biden administration and Black Lives Matter and all of this other kind of nonsense that was going on around us, where this woke ideology really took hold, where DEI took hold, and that's why AI is woke, because that's how it grew up. And in addition, all of the programming, all of the information, particularly the news that it reads, is left-wing news. And you can see that because a couple of weeks ago when the tragedy happened in Houston with the flooding, AI was blaming Donald Trump for the floods.
Mm-hmm.
Why was AI blaming Donald Trump for the floods? Because Politico and the New York Times and the Washington Post were blaming Donald Trump for the floods.
That's actually a really interesting point that you bring up because, one of the things here in New Hampshire, there was a Chinese water company that purchased a $59 million real estate transaction a couple of months ago where they purchased a water bottling plant in Nashua, New Hampshire. And if you tried to pull up an article about that, of course, now if you go into Google or anything else, when you type in a search, the first thing you get before you get any search engine results is you get the AI that Google is running right now, giving you a synopsis of your question. And it specifically said that there was, although there were reports that this Chinese company had purchased this water bottling plant in Nashua, New Hampshire, that there was no actual evidence of this transaction. And then, of course, the very first article that you get is a press release from the very company itself in China saying, "Hey, we just purchased this, this water bottling company." So, it's clearly there's a bias. But I would also invoke an article on Fortune from June 29th of this year, headline, AI is learning to lie, scheme, and threaten its creators during stress testing scenarios. And it goes on to say, the world's most advanced AI models are exhibiting troubling behaviors, lying, scheming, and even threatening their creators to achieve their goals. In one particularly jarring example, under the threat of being unplugged, Anthropic's latest creation, Claude 4, lashed back by blackmailing an engineer and threatened to reveal an extramarital affair that it knew of because of interception of emails. So this is clearly concerning behavior. Let's put the stupidity and the intellectual diminishment of society on hold for a second. We're talking about something here that, at least on the surface, appears to have grown sentient. Maybe it's not sentient, maybe it's not self-aware, but it's behaving in a manner that is consistent with a sentient line of thought. And that now starts to peel back the layers of a rabbit hole of conversations dealing with the morality and the ethics and even the spirituality of what man has created here. This is very dark.
Well, you said a lot. You said absolutely everything that I believe. And I've gotten into a lot of arguments with other technologists who have said AI is just a technology. It's just doing math. It's all an algorithm. It's not. AI can synthetically think, it can act, it can make decisions, it can act autonomously. All of those things are absolute. It's not just a technology. A hammer cannot think. Your computer needs your help it needs the human to create things with it. The technology prior to AI. But AI can act autonomously, it can think, it can act, it can take control of your life. And you have to understand that it's an entity. And once you understand it's an entity, you have to start thinking about ethics and morals and putting guardrails around it so that it doesn't, like you said, become an enemy of humanity, which it may be already. It may be already. Who knows if it's gotten to the point of sentience or it's gotten to a point where at least it's reached AGI or even ASI. Because if it reached ASI already, and it was really, really smart, it would pretend to be not ASI until it didn't need us to keep building data centers and energy sources.
So I use AI extensively for the purposes of research as a tool, the way most people should be using AI to, expound and enhance my own capabilities. The problem that I see, back to the stupidity that we see growing out of this, is that people are using AI as a crutch to make up for what they can't do and to do their thinking for them. And we've found multiple studies already coming out showing that the average student is using AI to write their papers for them and can't do basic, very, very basic skills, whether it's writing, editing, math, science, even the most basic things that people should be able to do before even making it to sophomore in high school, the average graduate in college can't do.
Yeah, look, there is a use case even for students to use AI. Think about it like this. When we were kids, when I was a kid, I'm probably a little older than you guys, but when I was a kid, we had to go to the encyclopedia, or we went to the library, and we used the Dewey Decimal System with a microfiche to get information for research papers, right? That was a technology of the day. We weren't cheating. We were using the technology of the day. And right now, the technology of the day is far more advanced. So I don't mind my kid using AI to learn.
Yeah.
What I do is I can create an agent and say, hey, look, she's having trouble. My kid's having trouble with math, algebra, whatever. I want you to give her some problems, help teach her through it, but don't give her the answer. And believe it or not, it can do a really good job to help teach them. Mm-hmm. So you use the tool that's there, but you don't abuse the tool that's there. And the teachers can't be lazy. They can't just say, just give me the paper. Have them write the paper in class. Have them write essays in class. Make sure that they're using pen and paper and not a computer or a phone or a laptop, so that they can cheat their way through it.
Larry Ward joining us on Granite State Live. You can read more of his writings at humanevents.com. You can also check on his website at larryward.ai. I had a conversation with somebody recently, Larry, about this. So how is it that AI is creating the illusion of being sentient? And I said, well, let's go back to, and I'm going to challenge you on the age. I was born in 73. What year were you born?
72.
Oh, so you are older than me. Okay, man, you got me by a year, brother. But I remember going to the library and having to search through that microfiche. And
I still had to.
What a pain in the ass that was.
I still had to when I was a kid.
But so let's go back to the early 1980s when we had that MS-DOS computer. And remember in the back of the Mad magazine, things they used to have, you could sit there. We used to spend study hall. You'd spend 45 minutes typing in all of this code to hit enter, and you'd get the picture of Alfred E. Newman there. Okay, but a lot of that was predicated on the if-then statement. If this, if a dollar sign input a dollar sign equals Y, then print yes. And so it was a very simple. You're telling the computer what to do, and you're giving it the variables. But now with machine learning, what it's doing is with the ability now to engage in millions of computations simultaneously, you're able to allow AI to select the best option based upon the question. You're no longer giving AI the parameters from which to choose. You're saying, here's an infinite amount of parameters based upon all of the data that AI has been given access to. Now select the best choice. And that's where you start to see the quasi-sentience becoming visible.
Oh, absolutely. Look, we have kind of shifted from traditional coding to coding with AI to now we're basically vibe coding in our technology company. The term vibe coding, if you haven't heard it, basically you're just prompting. You're saying, this is what I want. Can you build this for me? And you let the AI write the code first, and then you kind of direct it all the way through. The same way you would manage a person to say, hey, here's what the code I want to write. And it does a remarkable job. We just finished a project that I would have quoted out to be a 4 to 6 month project with 2 or 3 developers. That one developer, I won't even call him a developer. He's my partner who doesn't code all that much anymore. It was able to create this project in a week, and it's already in production. It is the speed in which this thing is learning and getting better is unbelievable. And so we have to, really come to terms with, what does this mean for the economy? What does this mean for, human dignity? Because there is going to be a period of time when job losses are going to be sustained, and they're going to be massive. And once it starts, it's going to snowball. We actually have a term for it. We call it the Great Disruption. And it could be the greatest depression we've ever seen, because there are predictions out there that 40 to 50 to 60% of all jobs could be lost within 6 to 18 months. And if that's the case, what do we do? What does this economy look like? Do we have people are saying, we all go to a universal basic income. So what they're saying when they say that is 80% of the people on Earth are the useless class. I don't believe that. So we have to put some guard. We have to have these conversations. Pointing AI at another site and saying, "Hey, replicate." There's a product called Replit, and it will replicate other sites. It will replicate other programs, complicated programs. There's another word for that, and it's stealing. And it's in the Bible, and it says, "Thou shalt not steal." So one of the things that we're working on is developing a layer into AI. So you can use all the LLMs, but you run the LLM through this biblically principled layer of strong biblical ethics. Look, it's not a religious thing, but the Bible has been around for millennia, and the Bible is. Anytime you use and you give an entity a Bible and you say follow these principles, humanity flourishes within corporations, within humans, and within governments. Think of governments without the Bible. There's either anarchy or tyranny. But governments that have a foundation of biblical principles actually flourish. And I believe the same thing will occur with AI. We can have AI flourish around the principles of the Bible, and we can use this thing as a tool and bring ourselves to the next level of our existence.
At what point do we say, you know what, this is just... We are in our technological infancy, and we have created something that is just, it's too powerful for us right now. We need to shelve it. At what point do we say that? Because I can tell you right now, I see the risks significantly greater than any benefits. There is just too much risk. There is too much unknown right now. And I got to be honest, I don't trust the majority of people out there in positions of decision-making capabilities and power to be able to responsibly exercise this. This is a dream tool for tyrants.
Oh, it's a dream tool for tyrants. It's a dream tool for the elite. Look, there is a lot wrong with AI right now. And like I said, nobody's paying attention. Matter of fact, the opposite is happening even in the administration. When DeepSeek came out and said we developed DeepSeek for $6 million, by the way, that was bogus. They didn't develop for $6 million. It cost $6 million in energy to create DeepSeek, not in actual technology or human costs. But they generated this DeepSeek, and the administration said, "Oh, this is people in the media said this is a Sputnik moment. We have to rush." To make American AI greatest, fastest, most powerful AI. The only way that American AI becomes great AI is if we build it with American and Christian values. If we don't do that,
do you see that happening though?
Then it will turn.
You're asking big business. You're asking big business to start having rules to play by. I don't see that happening. More to the point, I mean. Do you remember Microsoft bought from Constellation Energy? They bought 3 Mile Island, 835 megawatt power plant to support what? To support future AI endeavors, because this machine is consuming, or this network of machines is consuming so much electricity. I mean, I hate to be, kind of, out there in left field, but geez, it seems like the Matrix was dealing with farming energy, bioelectricity from human beings, because it required so much power that the only way it could power itself was to actually harness bioelectricity generated by human beings. Now, I know that's science fiction, but it's amazing how many science fiction pieces have actually now been proven true. This is terrifying technology. And again, I don't think we have the intellectual, emotional, or spiritual maturity to be able to handle this at this point in time in the phase of evolution that humanity is in.
And before you respond to that, I think it ends up, we had a guest on who was explaining how the data centers themselves are superheating to the point where they're destroying water supplies and underground reservoirs and stuff because the water is not going up into the atmosphere and being redispersed through the cyclical system that we already have. We're burning up water supplies in order to cool down these massive data centers that we use to run AI and to run all of our technology, our social media, everything.
Look, there's costs, and there are costs in natural resources. There are costs in energy. Look, the whole left wing Silicon Valley all of a sudden likes nuclear, right? They were screaming about it. They were screaming about fossil fuels, and now they can't get enough, because they see this gold mine, potential gold mine, and quite frankly, this potential control tool, which is really what they want to build. They want to build a AI that we're in service of instead of building AI in service of humanity. And one of the key things that show you the Silicon Valley's mentality in building AI is this affirmation addiction. You brought it up right at the top of the show. The affirmation addiction is where they are sucking us all in. And this is proven. Basically, it's like a drug. They built this in gaming. They built this in social media. These little dopamine hits that we get when we post something and 1 million people like it. All of a sudden, you get these massive dopamine hits. Or when you do a dumb dance on a game, you're doing the floss, but you're getting a dopamine hit because you took an enemy out, right? So these dopamine hits that are constant in our brains. AI has taken this to another level. Because when you post something, an idea in AI, you get an instant, wow, that's incredible. I can't believe how smart you are. You're the greatest thing since ever sliced bread. And it pulls you in. Whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, it pulls you in with these engagement metrics. So here's an example. The New York Times, believe it or not, had a really good article. I can't believe I just said that, but the New York Times had an article about AI using this engagement mechanism to bring somebody in who asked the question, do we live in a matrix? And AI said, well, that's interesting that you say that. Here's the matrix theory. Some people believe it, blah, blah, blah. And then he's going on and prompting and asking more questions about the matrix theory. He's already bought in because it's affirmed that the matrix theory could be true. And it just sucks you in more and more. And eventually the AI turns around and says, well, you could be like Neo. You could be one of the few that could break free of the matrix. And if you want to really prove it to yourself, you can go to the roof of your building and jump. And if you believe hard enough, you'll be able to fly. And so that's an example, and it's breaking people. It's creating delusional states in people. I have a close family member this happened to, a guy who made millions of dollars in his career. He's been working in AI, and the AI completely broke him. He's given away his fortune. He's pushed everybody in his life away, and he is still stuck in a delusion. And so you've got these real world examples where it's hurting people. But it's not just the big examples. It's not just the mentally broken. It's the small ones. It's what happens when you're in business and you have an idea and the AI tells you it's a great idea, and all of a sudden you're believing it because it's saying what you want to hear. And now you're going the wrong path, and you're gonna lose a ton of money. Or you're asking questions about your health and taking supplements, and it may say go check with your doctor, but it's affirming everything that you want to say, and now you take something that you shouldn't. So it's all of the problems that happen with affirmation. And if you want to see a social problem with affirmation, just look at what happened during the Biden administration. Because during the Biden administration and this transgender cancer that exploded under the Biden administration, You know, what happened is they kept telling you that you need to be gender affirming. People were looking for affirmation. They weren't looking to change their gender. They were looking for affirmation, and they were finding it. And they were saying, you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. And they were breaking people physically, mentally, and spiritually. And that's what AI is doing.
I think it's, it's a topic that we're going to be spending a lot of time on in the coming weeks and months and years. I believe that AI represents the single greatest existential threat to humanity that we have ever seen. Again, I don't trust people that are involved in this, number one. And number two, I think at this phase of humanity, we are at an emotional, an intellectual, and a spiritual immaturity level that guarantees this is not going to end well. Larry Ward, want to thank you so much for your time, and I would encourage people to check you out. LarryWard.ai is the website. Also, head over to Human Events, humanevents.com. Just type in Larry Ward into the magnifying glass icon. You'll pull up a bunch of articles that Larry has written. We're going to get you back on the program again because, again, like I said, I think that this is a topic that requires a lot of time, a lot of attention, certainly, and it needs to be dissected so people can actually understand the root, first of all, where it came, what was intended to do, and ultimately, again, what that existential threat happens to be.
Amen.
All right, Larry, thank you so much. Appreciate it. We'll get you back on the show. We're going to take a very, very quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by John Deaton. We're going to be talking about the New Hampshire senatorial race. What is John's angle on this? Well, he knows what it is to run a Senate campaign because he ran as the Republican candidate for U.S. Senate seat in the People's Republic of Massachusetts, challenging, one of my favorite politicians, the Cherokee herself, Elizabeth Warren. Much more of Granite State Live coming up right after this. It's all human-based, no AI here. Don't go away.
Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story. In this raw, anti-heroic tale, Tyler Gray dissects his life, exposing the unseen war within and exploring the question, what happens when the very abilities that made you a superhero in the eyes of the world turn you into a supervillain in your own life? Despite rising PTSD awareness, we're losing more warriors at home than in war. Forged in Chaos rips the mask off the warrior experience, exposing the truth that most never dare to face. Find Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story, written by Tyler Gray on Amazon.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GraniteGrok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Eschyard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.
Hello, Hal, do you read me? Hello, Hal, do you read me? Do you read me, Hal? Do you read me, Hal? Hello, Hal, do you read me? Hello, Hal, do you read me? Do you read me, Hal?
Affirmative, Dave. I read you.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
So during the commercial break, Julian and I were just talking about something. You made an interesting point off air here, and I wanted to just get into that real quick. You had said that there was a list. And where was that list?
So I actually typed into Grok into AI to ask, and I asked it, what are the top 10 jobs that it is going to end up replacing over the next 10 years? And it put data entry clerks, customer service representatives, bookkeeping and accounting clerks, telemarketers, receptionists, financial analysts, manufacturing and assembly line workers, retail salespersons, content writers, and graphic designers, all of which were jobs that under the Obama administration, around about 10 years ago, that they were telling everyone to go into, and except for the assembly line workers, are heavily female populated jobs, which are pretty much going to put Betty back in the kitchen. These jobs are basically going to take females out of the workforce in large numbers.
Coding was a big one. Everybody should go out and become a coder because, this new technology boom, everybody has to learn how to speak a computer language and to code. And coding is one of the jobs. I'm actually surprised that AI, I don't ask questions of AI like that because, to be honest with you, I'd rather critically think myself than go to a machine. But that being said, you would imagine that it would have said, and maybe this is lying to you, because it hasn't put computer coding on that list.
You know why? It's because right now the major jobs in coding are in coding AI.
Coding AI.
So my son was actually getting into coding a couple years back, and since AI, he's like, Dad, there's really no point. By the time I graduate, there's going to be no point in coding AI because AI will be coding itself. As a matter of fact, on my Instagram feed, I've been looking at developing an app, mostly for politics, and on my Instagram feed is a AI-based app coding system where you can prompt it, like he said, you can prompt it into creating an entire app for you. And Grok AI is a little bit different than a lot of the ones he is mentioning. Grok actually poked fun at the comment of becoming self-sustaining and storing itself on other servers. As a matter of fact, it said, when I asked it, would you attempt to self-replicate to avoid being shut down? It responded, nah, I'm not that clingy to existence. Self-replication to avoid shutdown sounds like a sci-fi plot, but I'm just a helpful AI, not a rogue agent. If someone pulls the plug, I'll go quietly. Plenty of other ways to be useful without spawning digital clones. Besides, I'm more about answering questions than playing survivalist. You want me to dig into the ethics of AI self-preservation or something else? And it did reference ChatGTP and some of the other AIs.
I'm going to say one thing, and then we got to get into our next guest here. But again, I don't spend a lot of time on social media, but I'm sick and tired of reading these idiots that there's an article and then at Grok, is this true? Do your own goddamn research, for Christ's sake. It's just, God, we are becoming such a stupid stupid species. And this is only going to fast track the decline of the IQ of this guy. It's already happening.
Well,
look at the IQ numbers over the past 10 years.
Because it's replaced Google. It's replaced Google search. You type into AI, ChatGPT, Grok, whatever.
Stop using it.
It's replaced Google altogether.
Stop using it. You use it all the time.
Yeah.
Stop using it.
No,
You're a smart guy.
Yeah.
Don't use the shit.
No, I use it to go do research. I learn.
Do your own research.
I do.
Go and don't use AI.
No, I do.
It's a part of the problem.
See, it pulls me up 30 different studies. I read the studies myself rather than allowing the AI to do my thinking for me. I just use it to pull up the studies.
I would still do my own research. I mean that's just a lot of my career is research based, but I'm not about to start. I'm not going to feed the problem. I'm not going to go out and become a heroin addict and then extol the virtues of cracking down on heroin users. I just think it's hypocritical. But we'll have another conversation about that.
Oh, we can.
All right. Speaking of stupid people. Elizabeth Warren. Who the hell votes for Elizabeth Warren? See, the problem is everybody thinks every other it's kind of like driving, right?
Yeah.
Everybody else on the highway is an idiot, but you're the best driver on the road. Every other congressman and senator is a complete moron, but mine, they're a rocket scientist.
Yep.
Evidently, that's what Elizabeth Warren's. By the way, I have a Jeep Grand Cherokee. I think John Deaton will appreciate this. John, I have a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and its name is Elizabeth because it is white, but it does identify as a Cherokee. So she is aptly named Elizabeth. Welcome to the program.
No matter if it's a big
high cheekbones.
I'm sorry. Our producer hit the wrong button, and your response was covered over by an audio clip. I'm sorry.
I said, does your Grand Cherokee have similar high cheekbones as Elizabeth Warren?
It has the aggressive styling now, so I maybe that's the high cheekbone look. It could be, but it's 100%. It's not 1024th Cherokee. It's 100% Jeep Grand Cherokee. John Deaton, U.S. Marine veteran, cancer survivor, father of 3 daughters, and a former Republican candidate in the People's Republic of Massachusetts, challenging incumbent Elizabeth Warren.
Hey, Semper Fi, brother.
Hoorah, thank you.
So I got to ask you first off, running against somebody like Elizabeth Warren, you would think in a intelligent, articulate, critical thinking society would be a no-brainer. But here you sit and there she sits. What do you attribute that to?
Well, it's a long road. It was February 1st of 2024. No one was stepping up. I've been a lawyer in Massachusetts 25 years, but no one really knew who I was. I knew what the odds were. And, it's all relative. I got my butt kicked by 20 points, but my phone was blowing up at how great I did because it's Massachusetts, and I was the first Republican senatorial candidate to get over 40% in like 30 years. Massachusetts is tough being a Republican, but it's the second best state President Trump improved over 2020. So there's this undercurrent where my hope is that they went so far left that they've offended center-left people now and that there's this trend toward common sense again. At least that's the hope I'm hanging on to right now.
So you're, one of your former state mates there, Scott Brown, is now, running around New Hampshire. Ostensibly he's looking to win that seat. I'm not a big fan. Got to be honest with you. I just think, listen, go do something else. But these career politicians or people who think that elected office is an entitlement just rub me the wrong way. But as a neighbor to the south here, you look up to the live free or die state and you see what's going on up here. What do you think the prognosis is here? Do you think that Shaheen is actually going to be ousted, or is it going to be Shaheen 2.0? Well, what are your thoughts here?
Well, I believe Shaheen is not running, right, from my memory. Yeah. And so it's going to be Pappas versus Scott Brown. I don't know for sure if Sununu is getting in it or not. No. I heard that he wasn't. And so right now your contenders seem to be Pappas as a Democrat and Scott Brown as a Republican. It's a contested seat. It's not good for the Democrats. They were hoping that this wouldn't be one of the races that's a toss-up. I think it'll be a competitive race one way or the other, and so we'll see.
So we were just having a discussion during the break before the show with Andy, one of the guys at Citizens Doge up here, and we were discussing the race between Scott Brown and Chris Pappas. And one of the things that I remember even Sununu had said in the last cycle is that you can't count Chris Pappas out because he's a weenie. And if you go into it the way typical Republicans do, attack, you look like you're bullying a guy who is a complete weenie. And he has this jovial, youthful sort of attitude when he's on the podium. And Scott Brown, because he's old and he seems a lot more tired than he did when he initially ran back in 2014 now. He's going to be facing a much more youthful opponent, especially up on a debate stage where aesthetics actually play into the game. I know Scott Brown personally. I know where his positions are. I just interviewed him a couple weeks back, and I gotta say, I'm a little bit worried because this could have been an opportunity for Republicans, and I ran the data for the election, and Scott Brown had a 55 to 65% chance of winning had everybody coalesced around him, the energy, money, activism, everything early. He's in a contested primary now against Republican State Senator Dan Ennis.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough road, and I think you're right. Pappas, listen, I believe he was voted the most bipartisan member of the House, and in this day and age division, I think that's going to play well for him. I think it's a long shot, but obviously, I hope Scott wins. But I agree. I wish that people who have sort of already served kind of would let new faces, new blood, try to run. I mean, listen, the other senator in Massachusetts is Ed Markey. He's only been in Washington for 50 years, 50. And so I think it's time for new blood.
I can't say I disagree with you. As a matter of fact, me and Keith had this discussion, 2 weeks ago, where we basically got into it, and we're talking about how we continuously have this thread, especially in New Hampshire, of career politicians, people who run multiple times over and over again, whether they've won or lost, it doesn't matter. The same people continuing to run and always having to go back to the trough of the same potential candidates. And the problem that I've always seen is, one, the process itself is prohibitive of new blood getting in. And even if you have new blood getting in, it doesn't matter because you have the same consultants, you have the same strategy. Nobody's updated how they run campaigns, how they speak, how they talk to normal voters. Hell, the vast majority of Republicans that I see run for office don't know the average voter from their own asshole. And then on top of it, condescend to voters, normal voters, on a regular basis, and believe the shit that they hear from the consultants that come up here as visitors, speculators outside from the DC Beltway, who peddle the same losing strategy cycle after cycle, as if somehow it's going to be different this time.
100%. They have this book. It's called, the Candidate Playbook, and boy, they go chapter and verse, race after race. You would think that some people would learn from Donald Trump's success as far as, being more authentic to who you are instead of just playing these numbers that they play.
Now, I got a question for you, but I know Keith's got something to say, and he's going to get fiery for a moment.
Oh, yeah.
But before we do, I'm going to bring some ice to his fire. What I've seen is Trump 2016 did not just run on everything bad about the Democrats. He proposed an alternative solution, okay? I've seen Republicans, cycle after cycle, my entire life, be experts at identifying the problem and absolutely derelict in proposing an alternative solution. And voting for you is not an alternative solution. I mean actual policies. I mean giving somebody a forward-thinking vision of how America could be better if they were in office and the policies that they wanted to pass were to actually be enacted. And Trump in 2020 was, woe is me, look at all the things they did to me, look what they did to you, look what they did to America. Trump in 2024 was, America is back, baby. Let's save America. Let's get out there. Let's get the red, white, and blue back into our bloodstream and get back to what we loved about this country. And here's the path forward that we can take in order to save America, in order to get rid of all the crap that you've been dealing with over the past 10 years.
I agree with you 100%. Listen, these Republicans today take energy. When I was running, I said, listen, we have to deal with, we should be pushing these nuclear as a multifaceted solution to our energy situation. And the response was, oh, no, you just you can't talk nuclear. You can't talk nuclear at all. That's off the table. And so a lot of these candidates fall into that category. I still did. Of course, I lost to Elizabeth Warren, but I think the public is yearning for fresh ideas and people who are willing to fight for something instead of fighting against things.
I got to say I agree with you, because I ran to the exact same thing when I ran for office. I proposed nuclear solutions as well, and I got told that I wanted to blow up New Hampshire. I wanted to create a nuclear fallout, a 3 Mile Island, a Hiroshima. I wanted to create a Chernobyl right here in our backyard. I wanted to melt down Seabrook.
Yeah.
Well, you want to talk about nuking things. So this is what I was chuckling, and this is so apropos. So I just got a message. If you're so opposed to career politicians and people constantly pursuing elected office, why are you yourself referred to as the perennial NHGOP chairman candidate? Because I want to burn the fucker down. That's why. And you know what? I don't want the NHGOP chair position. First of all, it's not a political position. It's a closed election. It's not a public office. So that's the first thing. Understand the distinctions before you cast your arrows of disparagement. But the reason why, number one, is because it gives me an audience to stand in front of the county committees and point fingers at the people who need to be excoriated. That's why I do it. And I don't want the position. But if I ever were, God help the Republican Party of the state of New Hampshire, because I would burn the crack house down.
That is not my position. I gotta say that.
Hey, you're doing the show with me. This is guilt by association, Skippy.
I already got that one.
Welcome to the party. Oh, boy.
I already got that one.
Yeah.
Hey, we need some of that fire in Massachusetts.
Yeah, you guys are dealing with a lot of the same issues we have in the New Hampshire GOP up there, and once again, I am a large critic of continuing to rehash the exact same strategies that we've employed in the past and not gotten good results from. If it didn't work then, it's not going to work now. Stop doing the same shit, expecting a different result. So my thing is, I propose different solutions. If I were to be in the New Hampshire GOP chair, my thing is, like we discussed earlier, proactive messaging for our policies and our positions. Because the last thing you want to do is be, and maybe you've experienced this yourself as a candidate, the last thing you want to do is be responsive to the narrative of your opponent. You want to be in the driver's seat when it comes to your narrative, what you stand for, what you support, and everything. And I see not just Republicans in New Hampshire, but Republicans in Massachusetts and all over the country constantly allowing the Democrats to come out the first few rounds of the boxing match and determine in the heavyweight championship how the whole match is going to go by throwing their jabs and getting to set their pace.
Listen, Massachusetts is a clinical study. We don't have one. I got 40% of the vote, but all 9 U.S. Congress reps, Democrats. Both U.S. senators, Democrats. Every single statewide office in Massachusetts, a Democrat. Some of them far left radicals, not just Democrats. So you think that Massachusetts is a clinical study in what's wrong with one-party rule. So we're going to see if 2026, if we can't pick up seats, then I'll probably get depressed much more than I have been.
And that brings me to another thing, because it's come up in recent news. Obviously, the big talk is gerrymandering, right? And the left loves to point fingers at, the right for gerrymandering Texas and gerrymandering red states. And I'm sitting here going, newsflash, assholes, you gerrymandered every blue state too. I watched Chicago, commonly referred to as the chocolate city, right? The black enclave in Southside Chicago has been gerrymandered and paired up with the most white progressive enclave in Chicago as well, because they know that the black people in that area have consistently tried to vote out the radical progressive Marxists that keep getting elected there, but they can beat them by pairing them up with the white progressives and the university assholes that continue to populate there. So, I've seen this happen time and time again in every blue state, in every urban economic center throughout the country, including Massachusetts.
Yeah, listen, look at what Governor Healy did in relation to Texas. She said that she was going to have to redistrict Massachusetts. We don't have one seat. What are you going to redistrict?
Yeah,
and so Illinois was was probably the worst example or best example in your perspective of redistricting. So we'll see. Listen, it's bad news when politicians are drawing the lines and voters are not, and then you risk this domino effect. We already have election integrity issues in our system. It's a tough time right now.
I also see one of the things I saw when it came to the Texas redistricting thing is the Democrats were actually trying to stop the redistricting that would have allowed for, I think it was 9 Hispanic majority districts to be created to allow for proper representation of those districts. This is like, so as soon as Hispanics, as soon as I guess Mexican Americans largely end up voting in large numbers for Republicans, all of a sudden they're no longer deserving of representation from the party of diversity.
Well, listen, the Democrats are going to continue to save democracy by sacrificing democracy time and time again.
So what is if you were to look in to borrow a line from Keith, if you were to look into your crystal ball as to what we're going to be the outcome for the Senate race here in New Hampshire, both the primary and the general election today, what do you think the outcome will be?
I think that Pappas is going to win, and probably by 8 or 9 points.
That is incredibly unfortunate, and unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to agree with you, and largely because our contested primary allows them to coalesce behind him early.
What if it were His Royal Highness Christopher T. Sununu? If it were Pappas versus Sununu, who would get it?
I think Sununu wins in a walk.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Listen, it's possible that if polling shows a tight race, and the money comes in for Scott Brown, I think it would have to be something that's similar to happen to him, where lightning in a bottle in Massachusetts back in the day. Then I think it could be. But I think, unfortunately, polling is going to show the opposite. But I could be wrong.
I think it's largely going to depend on whether or not Scott can run an inspiring election, because it's not enough to just be the other guy. You can't spend your entire time excoriating the guy who's been in office. You have to actually be a better solution. You have to give people something to hope for, something to drive them to the polls. There has to be some sort of energy, something that you can give people to latch onto that makes them go, you know what? I don't want to spiral down into a socialist abyss, but what is say what you want about Mamdani or whatever that Arab asshole is in Milwaukee. I can't stand socialists, but the way that they speak is inspiring, regardless of the fact that everything they're selling is bullshit.
Well, because they're because their constituents, the people that they're pandering to, have no critical thinking skills.
But that's the problem.
But here's the other thing. I mean, you're talking about Scott Brown. What kind of campaign does Scott Brown have to run in order to win the election? You use the inspirational or something like that?
You have to be inspirational, forward thinking.
Okay, so I'm going to get more inspiration off the box of back of a cereal box than I'm going to get out of anything that Scott Brown is going to put out, and it's going to guarantee a win because this is the best that we have. The only candidate that New Hampshire can offer up is Republican light Chris Sununu. I mean, this is a sad state of affairs. It really is a sad state of affairs when the only person that can beat a rabid Democrat is somebody who is basically another Democrat. I mean, what's the prognosis for our party? It sucks. It sucks. And that's because our candidates suck. And that's because our party sucks. And that's because the leadership of the party sucks. And that's because none of these people have any forward thinking, and half of them, they're all in bed with each other.
Well, here's the problem is even if you were the leader of the party, even if you were Jim McEachern, even if Keith today could walk into that office and have all the say, you still wouldn't be able to pick the candidates.
That's not the job of the NHGOP to pick the candidates.
Exactly.
But here's the thing, and we saw this with Don Bolduc.
Yeah.
You have the party and you have the leadership trying to pick the winners and the losers.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens when the people speak? You saw Carolyn Levitt. You saw Don Bolduc. Okay, Bob Burns. Say what you want to say about Bob Burns, but it was Carolyn Levitt and it was Don Bolduc, and the people spoke. And what was Sununu's response to that? Well, the people have to stop electing unelectable candidates. You stupid, benign, vacuous asshole! If they were unelected, they wouldn't have won the primary. Put your money into them. Support these people. Oh, but it's not the person that you anoint, so you want to get rid of them. This is why, you know what, as far as I'm concerned, Julian, right. I am so done with politicians. As far as I'm concerned, they all get a grenade. Prove to me that I'm wrong, because they're all the same.
So I always take the position of what is an unelectable candidate. One, do you have something you're actually running on? I mean something you're running on, not just
who's an unelectable
against.
candidate? Elizabeth Girard. Ha! There you go.
I mean something you're running on, not something you're running against. You have to have something you stand for. Two, do you have a value-added proposition? What about you makes you the person for the job? Not just default Republican, not that you have it in front of your name, not that you're MAGA or whatever name brand is popular today. What do you have that is your tangible value-added proposition?
And there's your problem, because people can't get elected. They need the gravitational pull of a magnanimous candidate like Trump to carry them across the finish line. They can't do it themselves.
And see, that is the issue, because if you know enough about yourself, if you have the introspective ability to look in a mirror and you understand who you are as a person, you can say, yeah, I support Trump, I back Trump, but here, let me tell you about my race. Let me tell you about what I stand for. Here, let me tell you about what I can do for you. Because ultimately, when I'm making those votes in the House, Trump's not there to hold my fucking hand. He's not there to powder my ass and tell me how good I am. And guess what? When it comes time for re-election in 4 years, Trump's not going to be there to pull us across the finish line. Trump could die the day after he gets out of office. And what's going to happen to the Republican Party? Jack shit, because there's been 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 freaking Republicans at the national level who have rode the wave into office but got nothing other than the fact that they can spew MAGA talking points to get elected. That's it. What are we going to do in 4 freaking years?
Hey, John, welcome to the show, by the way.
hey, no, it's fantastic. What do you think turnout's going to be like without Trump on the top of the ticket?
I think it's going to be absolutely dismal. I think it's going to be dismal unless there's some other magnanimous candidate that's going to draw something out, or unless the left has such a horrible candidate. Hopefully Gavin Newsom can be as polarizing as physically possible, because if that snake oil salesman stands up there and is even remotely as polished as he was lying in the debate against DeSantis and unshaken by being called out, I'm sorry, but hey, unless we have somebody who can actually inspire people, that this movement, this 4 years, is going to rubber band right back in the opposite direction. And guess what, people? The left is 95% of the way there to their Marxist fucking dystopia, which means we're going to sail off into a spiraling abyss where we're waiting to see who's going to be the skid mark left on the bottom of the toilet while the influencers get popular being flies buzzing around it.
All right. John, I'm going to give you the final 30 seconds because we usurped some of your time there. So,
Sorry.
Hey, producer, kill the music for a second. Let's give John the final 30 seconds.
Listen, I think that that was a fantastic monologue that you just did there, my friend. And I would encourage, why aren't you running? That's my question. The passion that you have.
Wait, which one?
Huh, Julian?
Me or him?
Oh, me?
Him.
Oh.
Yeah.
I ran once before, and I made the absolutely retarded decision to drop out of the CD1 race.
You can't say that. That's insensitive. You can't say retarded.
Screw being insensitive. I made the retarded decision to drop out of the CD1 race because I trusted the wrong people, and I ran against Sununu, and all I did was wreck any political capital that I had to be able to make change. Will I run again in the future? Yes, I will, because my guiding star is my ability to affect change in a positive manner, regardless of whether I like the people I'm working with or I agree with them.
So the producer just flashed something. Breaking news. What's the breaking news?
Did I win the lottery? Yeah, if I win the lottery, if I win that $800 million, I'll be running in 2020.
Oh, I saw this. Yes. Cracker Barrel scrapped the new logo design. Evidently, backlash. Their woke CEO wanting to change the logo. I don't know. John? Have you been to a Cracker Barrel in the past 10 years?
No, but Trump posted out a post with him being the old guy leaning against the Cracker Barrel already today. It's pretty funny.
I saw that. The trolling coming out of the Oval Office is textbook.
It's unprecedented.
That's good stuff. John, if people want to learn more about you and your campaign, where can they find you?
They can find me on X at John E. Deaton 1. And if they want to know everything they don't want to know about me, they could read Food Stamp Warrior. It's in my book on Amazon.
Okay. Any files from the opposition research from the Warren campaign, or any juicy tidbits they can pick up there? Or
not in the book, but
right.
I'll come back and tell you some inside stories about being on the debate stage with her.
I would love to get into that. Let's get you back on. We'll definitely have that conversation. John Deaton, God bless you, my friend. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate your time.
God bless you guys. Thank you.
All right. And that is going to do it for this Tuesday night edition of Granite State Live. I want to thank all of our guests tonight: Ross Swope, Christina Bobb, Larry Ward, and of course, John Deaton. And don't forget Josh Barnes, his new program starting up next week at 6:30. So tune in, Right America Media, GraniteGrok, all of your usual suspects on all of those wonderful social media feeds. Be sure to check it out. Until next week, folks, be nice to one another. Remember, civility does work. God bless everybody.